if you did, right, if you like, oh, I got to do my dailies for World of I don't think I ever like said, oh, you shouldn't do those, or oh, those are not worth doing. But the fact that if you didn't do your daily, or you don't do a dungeon every week, right? Like that's the thing for you, is you want to do a dungeon every week so that you get your gear that keeps you relatively up to the item level of your friends.
You should talk to my friends, because my item level is significantly below theirs because I don't care.
Yeah, but they do.
That's true, and that's the difference.
Welcome to Pride and Accomplishment. My name is Jason.
And I'm Chris. This is episode 58. Today we've got another timely topic about a game that has recently had its open beta weekend. That being the several times delayed New World from Amazon Game Studios, which is actually an MMO. So I guess this podcast is turning into a bit of an MMO show, but oh well.
It'll swing back. I think, just at a meta level, I think there's a lot going on in the MMO world right now that got delayed from last year. So, as you mentioned, this game was delayed, and rightfully so. I think we will talk about that in the show today. It is better for it, but I think all of it's kind of colliding at the same time. Everyone's kind of finishing whatever they were working on in 2020, and that's why we're seeing so much happen in both the video game world and particularly the MMO world. So as you mentioned, New World did have their open beta, if you're listening to this on release day, the past weekend. And that gave Chris and I the opportunity to try it. I had kind of been watching it. I think Chris kind of had some side eye on it. But I kind of asked Chris, I said, hey, it's going to be free. Why don't we just try it out and see what we think?
Yeah, and I said, absolutely. If it's a zero cost, try, then I'm all for it. And I think, speaking of cost, this game is going to be a one-time cost and then no subscription. Is that correct?
That is what I have been explained. Again, this is like Amazon's first like real big MMO game. So I think we'll talk about this again in a little bit. Maybe is. Not really sure what their long-term monetization plan is, but as of right now, it is a one-time purchase with no monthly subscription.
So do you want to talk maybe first impressions in terms of like booting up this game and what we first thought about it?
Yeah, so I've got to say, I went into it with medium expectations, and this is kind of how I want to start everything. If you've heard about New World, or you've watched something in the past, or this game has been delayed and changed a lot. If you have experienced New World in the past and have not experienced it since this closed or open beta, highly recommend you listen to this podcast and everything about New World with a very open mind, because so much has changed since it kind of was first announced.
Yeah, I came into this with a much lower expectation, I would say. I was not really expecting much out of it, and I'll say I was pleasantly surprised. So I would echo Jason's call for an open mind here, and I think that is a good idea.
So going into it with an open mind, I loaded up the game. It was really smooth. They put out kind of a press release beforehand on how to like sign up for the open beta, and it was all done through Steam, which I've never done that before. And that was kind of interesting to me, but downloaded it through Steam, booted it up, and right off the bat, you're taken through a pretty convincing cutscene. I mean, it was a pretty good opening cinematic, and I was right off the bat pretty impressed with it.
Yeah, I think if you've seen the trailers for it, it was kind of that one where you've got the guy that goes into the tavern and he listens to the story and all of that. It seemed like the same cutscene that played at the beginning of the game, but then it dumped you right into a really good tutorial experience, I think.
Oh yeah, no, that was like, I had seen other people go through that tutorial, but to experience it myself was really nice. Essentially it taught you how to attack, heavy attack, block, dodge, all of the things that you're kind of need to know right away, in a very fluid manner, right? It kind of like had an enemy attack you and then slowed down time or stopped time until you did the thing that you were that you needed to do. Think like what are those quick action,
QuickTime events.
QuickTime events. Think QuickTime events, but without a timer. And that's kind of what the tutorial was, at least for the first couple of like a minute or so. And it was just really well done. Like, it was really fluid and kept you kind of in it.
Well, the other thing they didn't do is they didn't say like, okay, do 6 light attacks and 3 heavy attacks. Like, there was not a lot of like, you didn't feel like it was patronizing you, right? It wasn't like going after like insulting your intelligence, I guess, and saying like, here's do this 10 times to prove to me that you know how to do it. It's like, that's not really going to teach me what to do. It's just going to annoy me. And I thought it did a really good job of showing me, okay, what are the buttons? What do I have to do? I have played video games before. I do understand that movement is a thing. Like, you don't have to make me walk over here, then make me walk over there to prove that I know that WASD is a thing. So I did appreciate that it was very, it gave a lot of credit to the player. And it really was just showing you, here are the things that are different about this game.
Yeah, I think the first thing it tells you to do is move with WASD, and you like push W for about 3/4 of a second, and you're done.
Yeah, and then it's like, great, you got it.
Progressing from there, right after the tutorial, you kill a couple enemies, you experience the first mini boss. That was all really cool. Actually, I think before the first mini boss is where I want to talk about. But there's a moment in essentially the opening couple of minutes of the game where you are walking up this set of stairs, and they hit you with this like dynamic camera zoom into the title screen. And that is what like really sold me on the game. That was kind of like, okay, this is going to be a cool experience. It wasn't. It wasn't anything fancy. I'm not trying to say like other games can't do this or like what it did was out of this world. But it was just, again, it was so smooth, so fluid, and so kind of keeping you in it and really kind of like trying to get those positive emotions and positive kind of feelings going. That it was cool. I really I enjoyed those little moments within the game.
Yeah, as I was walking up those stairs that you're in the moment you're describing, I thought the music was also kind of dynamic, or like the music was building to a certain moment that really crested as you kind of crested that hill, which was really cool. Like, I think they did do a very good job of kind of getting you into the game. I actually got like a little bit of like an Uncharted vibe there, because oftentimes Uncharted games, they take you through like, Mayan ruins and like treasure hunting and that kind of thing. And this game, I think, is set, I think of it kind of in like a Christopher Columbus era, I guess, like a 1500s-ish time frame. Do you think that that's close? I don't know.
Yeah, that seems about right. Again, I don't really compare it to our world. But like, yeah, the fashion and the clothing and the armor all seem to indicate kind of that time period. Obviously you add in magic and corruption and all this other stuff, and you're just like, okay, well, this is not, I mean, it's not our world anymore, but yeah, that's kind of the style of the game for sure.
So once you finish this little tutorial island area, you wake up on kind of the real island, like you're in the MMO environment. So there's like a starting area and you're just by yourself. And then you wake up and you're in this area that's like inhabited with other human players, right? Other people. And I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to like the actual story of this thing. I mean, it was a lot of kind of, oh no, the corruption has come, there are shipwrecks, you must go get the stuff from the shipwrecks. Like, it was very kind of generic in that regard. But one thing I did pick up was that this guy said, oh, you're the only survivor from your ship and you've died and been resurrected. And that's why you're here now and nobody else survived from your ship. And I was like looking around and I was like, okay, there's maybe, I don't know, 50 to 100 people that I can see right now, like from where I'm standing. Does this mean that there have been 100 different ships that have all crashed into this same island? Like, at some point, is there just going to be like a mountain that arises from the sea that's made of like broken ships? Because that's a lot of boats and ships. Like, have we deforested all of Europe to build the ships to come here to crash so that we can play this game?
I don't know. It didn't really bother me. It's the same thing with like in Destiny 2. You're like, oh, you're the Guardian that saved the whole world, and there's no one else like you. And thanks, Guardian, you're the champion. And you look around, and you're like, yeah, but there's like 45 other Guardians in the tower right now. Like, what? Why is it me?
They are also the only one.
They're also the only. So that one really doesn't bother me. That's just, I guess, part of an MMO story. But yeah, I'll echo the. To me, the story wasn't gripping enough to pay attention and wasn't important enough for me to try to pay attention. It was just kind of there. I think some of the lore is kind of cool, and we'll get into like that. We didn't really experience it, but I think it will become more important. I don't know if you, Chris, in your playthrough experienced any of the corruption, like the actual corruption in the game. But that was, it's a cool like lore element that adds a gameplay element. But again, like how that all ties into the main story, I did not experience. I didn't learn.
Yeah, I did experience some of the like corrupted areas, mostly by dying in them, but it was fine. I didn't get into any of the story stuff, like you said. Like it really wasn't enough time. We played to set the stage here. We played for probably 4 or 5 hours, maybe total.
Yeah, I think so. A whole group of us played together, and I think on the lower end was 4 to 5. On the upper end was like 16 hours. But yeah, that's the experience we had. I do want to cut in there with talking about a group of people. So there were about 4 or 5 of us that played throughout this open beta, and at no point in this entire playthrough that we had were we encouraged in any way by the game to play together. And I would say that is fine. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, and maybe we didn't make it far enough, and I'm willing to accept that. I mean, I know for sure we didn't make it far enough because dungeons and like actual group content becomes a thing. But I think it's missing an element there somehow to promote kind of group play, even if it's not like organized group play, but just like other people in the world going for the same objective at the same time. And I will relate this to, and Chris, you're going to groan, but I will relate this to Guild Wars 2 and maybe World of Warcraft, and Destiny has another element of this where like there are either dynamic events or some kind of thing going on in the world that the people in that area work together towards. And it just promotes this kind of group play a little bit. And I didn't experience any of that.
I agree that there wasn't any incentive to doing things as a group. We were partied up in a party for our like group of 4 people that were playing at the same time for like probably an hour. And other than being able to see each other's names often and say like how far away they were. So I would see like Jason is 1.5 kilometers that way. And I'm like, okay, well, that's nice. Like, I'm not going to go over there because we'll get to this, but the run speed in this game is very slow, or at least it feels very slow. And there is no way of getting a mount or a run or any sort of other speed enhancement. So that was kind of a bummer. But the group aspect of it, there wasn't anything that was like, I'm on this quest. Would you like to come with me on this quest? I mean, I don't even need dynamic world events. I know that's a huge part of Guild Wars. And yes, that is kind of a fun thing when all the people show up and they all start doing the same thing. I believe there was some of that in the corruption. I think the corruption stuff was kind of a, hey, everybody do this thing to defeat the corruption or something like that. But I was not high enough level to actually participate in that. But I would say that even as a group, I would have liked a group quest log or a, see who else is on this quest with you, and like here's shared progress and like the things that make it so that there's an advantage to playing with your friends, right? So things go faster when you're playing with people. I think that would have been a nice feature.
Yeah, shared progress. That's kind of what I was thinking of. I couldn't put my finger on it, but that's why you group up with people in other games. In World of Warcraft or some other MMOs, right? Destiny 2, we always group up and we try to do things together because the shared progress is such a boon to like getting things done and progressing faster. And I just that wasn't a thing here. So I'm kind of hoping that we get something like that or that comes along in some way. It was fine. Like it didn't detract from the game, but it certainly didn't help it. Do you want to dive in? You brought up movement speed and and that element of our experience. Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, I might. I mean, this might be a little bit of a gripe fest here, but I did not feel like this was like the traversal in this game did not feel satisfying, right? Everything felt just very slow. So the camera angle is third person, and you're always at whatever this game considers to be a run speed, which I think is more like a brisk walk. And if you press control, you actually slow down to an actual walk, which is more like a tiptoe. And it was just everything I was doing. I was looking for, how do I run faster? There's actually a dodge roll button where you can depending on the armor that you're wearing, which is actually really kind of clever technique there, but you do a dodge effect. And I was like, oh yeah, a lot of games, you do your dodge and you roll forward and then you just keep running. In this game, you dodge, you stop, you stand for a second, and then you keep moving. So there's really no advantage to trying to use your dodge roll to go faster. So I was just constantly stymied in my wishes to move a little bit faster through this world.
I like the way you said it. I like that you said it was unsatisfying or unfulfilling or whichever word you used, because I didn't feel like it was on the grand scale too slow. Would I have preferred to be able to get from place to place faster? Yes. Did I ever feel like it was like a super big burden? Not really. It was fine. But it was, regardless, it was unfulfilling, right? It was unsatisfying. How, I was here, the objective was there, that's 600 meters. Fine, let's go, right? Like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, let's like mount up and have some fun and ride around a little bit. And, I felt like the fact that it was 600 meters away or whatever, right? The objective was so far away, made me go, I have to go straight there, right? I can't deviate from the path. I have to stay on the path. I can't fight enemies on the way because any of that will slow me down. And one of the arguments I've heard for no mounts is that it's to encourage you to kind of stray and kind of get distracted and maybe get off the beaten path on your way to your objective. And I think it did the opposite for me. I think it encouraged me to beeline it to wherever I was going, because I knew how far away it was, and I knew that straying or getting distracted was just going to slow me down, and there was no way to make up that time.
Yeah, if they're looking to not distract, or to allow you to be distracted, I should say, I think that you can do that even if I could move twice as fast. I could still see a little notification that there's a rock over there I can mine. And if I want to mine rocks, I'll go over there and mine the rocks. The speed at which I'm passing the rock does not change whether or not I want to mine the rock.
One of the things that you mentioned was the map size, and it was not particularly large. It wasn't small, but I think mounts or any kind of increased travel speed would make it much smaller.
Yes, it would make it feel smaller. And there is, I think we should say, to be fair, there is a fast travel network. So there's these shrines and things that you can basically warp between. So you have to go to one and stand at it, and then you can choose another one to go to. But that requires some kind of currency that we're not sure if that might be a premium currency or kind of how that's going to fit in. But I think that's actually a worse compromise in terms of traversal and movement, because then I'm really skipping everything, right? I'm getting somewhere fast, but I'm getting somewhere instantly, which means I'm skipping everything in between points A and B, and I'm not doing any side tracks or any side quests or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll use the word again. It's an unsatisfying method. It's not something that I would want to do because it's the right or fun thing to do. It's because it's the most efficient thing to do.
I will say, though, on the subject of traversal, that they've done a very good job of auto run. So there's an auto run button, and you can remap it to something that's much closer to your hand than whatever they put it on. But the auto run is very good in that your character just runs forward, and then your mouse, because of this third person camera angle, your mouse basically controls your camera and the direction your character is pointing. And so you can just go into auto run mode and then just use your mouse to pan left and right to get your character to turn. And that does work pretty well for the fact that you have to run, 2 kilometers at normal human speed. So it actually takes several minutes to get from point A to point B. You can the steering of that is nice. You don't have to like hold down mouse buttons. You don't have to hold W. You can just, have your guy running, and then you just direct kind of where he's going to go.
Yeah, this game would be unplayable without autorun. Unplayable. So sticking with the theme of maps a little bit, there are lots of systems in the game, and we'll get into combat and progression, but one of the progression systems is kind of like your standing or your reputation. If you're relating it to World of Warcraft, kind of like your reputation with a town or a faction. There's a map standing kind of reputation system in certain regions of the map. There are also faction controlling elements of regions of the map, and we haven't talked about factions yet, but you essentially get to choose from one of three. And I would say, of all of the things that I kind of experienced in the game, that was very poorly explained. It was cool once you kind of figured it out, and it was really kind of fun to kind of choose what you wanted to do and like work towards kind of progressing and getting further. And I think that's going to be a really positive thing that I'll have to say here in a minute. But the system itself wasn't explained, but when you leveled up or you got bonuses or whatever, it did a really good job for me of encouraging me to stay in a certain region to level it up or reap the rewards that I had gotten from, putting time or effort or standing into that area.
I think you were paying a lot more attention to the geographical boundaries of the map than I was, because I would just kind of go to wherever my quests were and just like, oh yeah, I got to do quest stuff. Like I wouldn't choose like, oh, I need to stay in this quadrant because I have plus 10% XP in this quadrant. I wasn't that clever. And when I first got it, I was on the starting island, and I first got my first territory point or whatever they call it. I was on the starting island and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I'll choose, plus 3% XP because I'm in a starting island. So I should, try to level up faster. So that seems like a good idea. And then I completely forgot that I had done that. And then I also left that area like 10 seconds later. So it really didn't do me much good, I think, in the end. Did you spend a lot of time like popping open the map and like looking at what was going on and then going back to your character?
I tend to do that in every game. I tend to open the map a lot. Like way more than I think some other people do. But yeah, I open the map a lot. I think I also got a little further in the quest chain than you did, because I started to get to the point where stuff was really far away. And essentially I chose not to do it and to pick up more side quests or faction quests, and things like that I knew were going to keep me in the same area.
Got it. Yeah, I was not being that strategic, I guess, about my quest choices.
Yeah, once it said I had to go 3.5 kilometers, I was just like, yeah, we're going to save that for later. I do want to talk more about progression, though. And maybe we should start by saying that there are no classes. There are no like locked in choices that you have in this game. You don't have to choose a class or a profession or anything during character creation. Literally, character creation is how you look and your name. So that's really cool. It's a lot like other games where your kind of entire build is determined by your gear and your armor and the weapons that you choose. There are some what I'll call like static progression elements of it that are character based, that it seemed like it was relatively easy to respec, but they were kind of locked into your character. So one of the debates that we were kind of having as we were playing was, is this going to be a game where you need alts or not? And I think I'm still kind of going back and forth on that, but it definitely, at least at lower levels, really encouraged like lots of variety.
I don't think that this game is intended to have alts at all because, well, and maybe this was just for the beta, but when you chose a server, they were telling you like, you can only have one character on this server. And if you want to have a different character, you need to delete your character altogether. So I think their intention is really that you have one persona or one character that you play, maybe per server, maybe per game. I was a little unclear on that. And that you can kind of just open up your character to do whatever you want to do. So like there are attributes, like you said, there's strength and intelligence and dexterity and all that kind of stuff. And you get skill points every time you level up. And it seemed like the levels were coming relatively quickly, and kind of leveling up those points was pretty easy. And to your point, there was a respec button. No idea on kind of what the cost will be in the final game of that. I think it was free up until level 20. And then after that, I don't know what the cost is to do those respecs. But I think that the intention is that you're going to have one character, and the one character is going to be able to do lots of things if you have put in the effort to train up those things.
On a non-character basis, I really liked how the weapon progression went. And I think you made the reference to Assassin's Creed. And that was everything clicked into place when you said that. But essentially, for each weapon that you use, you gain experience for that specific weapon. And then you get a skill tree for that specific weapon when you level up that weapon. And that's how you get your skills and your passives and your all of the things. But if you were to switch weapons, you obviously switch your skills and you switch which weapon you're gaining experience for. And the weapons kind of define what role you are, right? There was a life staff, which healed and did damage. There was a sword and a shield, which kind of was a little tankier because it could actually like block pretty effectively. There's long range stuff like bows and fire staffs that did DPS at range, but you could switch anytime you were out of combat.
Yeah, that was really cool. Where you could just be like, yeah, I'm doing this now. I'm done with the bow. I'd like to use the life staff. Okay, I'm done with the life staff. I'd like to use the fire staff. And you could just swap out. You have 2 weapon slots, and you can switch between them. You can kind of switch between weapons in battle, right? So you could take a couple of ranged shots and then switch to your sword and shield, and then use the sword for up close combat. And that actually felt pretty good. Like that was a good way to go. But in each case, you might take 2 shots with the bow and then switch to your sword, and you would get XP for both the bow and the sword, which was kind of cool. And I think that the thing that makes it even more kind of rewarding there is that after you killed each enemy, you would kind of get this little readout of like, here are the things that you earned XP for. Like it wasn't like a pop-up. It was just something that was like in the world, and it would just kind of scroll by automatically. So it wasn't like in your face and it didn't like take you out of it, but like you could kind of see like, oh, plus 12 to, sword and shield. Oh, okay, cool. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but I'm glad that you're showing me that I have made some tangible progress in my leveling up of sword and shield.
Yeah, it was really that UI was really good because it showed you like plus 12, and then it actually showed you like a really mini representation of the full XP bar for that sword or for that weapon set. So you could like at a glance just be like, oh, I'm like, I don't know, 80% or whatever. That was really nice. That was really cool. Because if you saw like you were really close, you might decide to kill one more enemy, get distracted, right? I think that was kind of the theme of this game, was get distracted. And that it was just like kind of there, but not in your face. Like if you weren't looking for it, you kind of miss it. But if you like were really kind of focusing on leveling up something or wanted to know whether you got experience for something, the information was kind of right there. In general, I would say I really liked how the game promoted that kind of variety and like trying different things. I did by the end of it, I don't know about you, but I did by the end of it gravitate towards a sword and shield. And I gravitated towards a spear. I really liked the spear and the life staff. The spear was kind of longer ranged melee, right? It gave you a little bit more distance. So it was a little easier to dodge, I would say. I gravitated towards dodging over blocking, which again, I don't know if there were any like super important things that differentiated the two. But essentially one was jumping out of the way and one was holding up something to block the enemy's attack. And then I really liked the life staff. I felt like the ability to heal, but also do okay, reasonable ranged damage. Not super crazy, but not bad. Those are the things that I kind of stuck with for the last couple hours of play.
Yeah, I kind of ended up settling in on the sword and shield and the life staff, mostly because sword and shield I already had some experience in, and I had some, commitment to, because I was already level 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever I was on sword and shield. So I was like, I guess I'll keep using this. And then, yeah, the life staff was really nice because it was ranged. seemed to have infinite shots, which was unlike the bow and arrow where you had to make arrows from time to time. And you also got that ability to heal yourself and others, which was really nice. So I think, yeah, all of those things together kind of put me into the kind of sword and shield and lifestaff camp. I think I'd like to try a couple of other melee short range weapons next time. I was not very good at blocking or dodging in terms of combat. I have this problem in a lot of games. I'm not very good at parrying. I'm not usually very good at blocking. I'm usually okay at dodging, but this game, maybe it was something about the engine, maybe it was something about the networking. I felt like it was a little bit sluggish on the blocks, and then I would just forget to do the dodging. And you also have some kind of stamina bar where you can't dodge several times in a row, which was kind of weird. So I would try to like conserve that, but I shouldn't conserve it, right? I should use it so I don't die. And I think I found myself dying probably 3 or 4 times during the session that we played. Basically, it brought you back to a like, hey, where would you like to respawn point? And usually that was either your camp that you had dropped on the ground, which is an interesting mechanic that you can drop a camp anywhere you want. And that basically creates a 500 meter respawn point. So if you're within 500 meters of the camp that you're registered to, then you can respawn there if you die. Or you'd have to go all the way back to a city. So that happened to me at least once where I was probably a kilometer away from the city and I didn't have a camp down and I had to go back to the city and then run back out to where I was so that I could keep doing what I was doing. That was a little frustrating.
I felt the same. I felt the sluggish, maybe. I think the blocking, essentially, you weren't able to block at all if you were in the middle of a swing. There was no animation canceling for a swing, an attack you were already in, which makes sense, right? It was trying to be a little bit realistic about blocking. You can't hold a shield up while you're also swinging a sword at an enemy. But I never really got used to that, and I never really timed it right. I felt like the dodge was more responsive. So like you could be swinging, and I felt like if you're swinging, you couldn't dodge at the exact same moment, but I felt like you could dodge faster through that swing than blocking. So like you just got a little bit more time to react to the incoming attack. And so I found myself dodging almost exclusively near the end of my gameplay. It just seemed to work. You really do need to block or dodge or in some way try not to get hit, or else this game becomes very hard. It's not, and that was, I kind of made this note about combat. It's not easy, and that's a good thing. I think that it really kind of was important for the gameplay loop, that combat was interesting every time you engaged in it. And anytime you engaged more than like 2 or 3 enemies, it was like, oh, okay, we got to focus here. You really could only take on, I don't know, maybe 2 enemies at a time if you were, really being careful. It's not like in other MMOs where you're just like, there's 5 people in this area. How do I pull them all into the same exact spot and kill them all at the same time? It was, I'm going into melee combat with this person. They very easily could kill me if I just stand here and take the blows. The other side of that, though, is that, you really only have 3 skills, and there's really only quick and light, light and heavy attacks. So it could, at low levels, even when, especially when you don't have all 3 of those skills filled out, while it wasn't easy and it was generally pretty engaging, if you got good at it, it could get a little boring.
Yeah, I was surprised that there was not anything else. Like, it was a very simple, but maybe it's an easy to learn, hard to master kind of thing. But the combat, expecting an MMO, you're like, oh, there's going to be skills and there's going to be all this stuff. Like, as we've talked in the past, have an MMO mouse and a kind of first person shooter and everything else mouse. And I did not pull the MMO mouse out for this one because there's no point. Like, there are no buttons in this game, right? There are skills on like Q, E, and F or something like that. And there's a couple of other buttons, and that's it. Like, the 6 thumb buttons that I have on my Logitech G602 will be plenty for anything I ever need to do in this game.
Yeah, it's a lot like Destiny in that regard, where, you've got your weapon. I mean, Destiny's first person, it's ranged, but like there's not like a whole skill bar. It's three things that you can choose in a build of sorts. But you're not going to be using your skills over and over and over again. You're just going to be using your regular attacks and then using your skills at strategic moments. Maybe when you first engage, or maybe when you're low in health, or whatever.
Yeah, and I would usually say that that's because a game is cross-platform and they're trying to make sure that you can do it all with a controller. But this game is PC only, so like they know you're going to have a keyboard and mouse, so that doesn't seem to be in the equation.
Can you play with a controller though?
I don't know. I mean, I think you could. There's a small enough number of things that you have to do that I think you could probably map it all to a controller for the most part. There are a lot of menus though, and there's a lot of like clicking on things. So like to move a cursor with a stick would be unfortunate.
Yeah, but all of them were kind of like list or box style. I think you could actually play this whole game with a controller. I wouldn't be surprised. Speaking of menus and boxes and UI, crafting is a huge part of this game, and I barely scratched the surface. But I am very excited for getting deeper into that element of it. And with crafting, maybe we should bundle this all together. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but the gathering and mining and resource collecting was, in my mind, very, very satisfying. I don't know how you felt about it, but I actually like really was satisfied by the resource collecting part of this game.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the resource collection part. I got to level 13, I think, in skinning, which was higher than my character level turned out to be. And I did a lot of, gathering from trees and rocks and animals and all of these things. And I think that the UI and just the general experience that they had for the gathering aspect of things was very satisfying. I want to talk about that first, and then we can talk about crafting. So like one of the things that was different about this than every other MMO I think I've ever played was that when you got to a resource node, so that's like a boulder or a tree or whatever, you could start to harvest it, and your character would do like swings. So like if it's a tree, you're cutting it with an axe, right? Your character would swing and make a big clunk, on the tree, and then this little meter would chip away. And with each hit, it would make a little chip and chip and chip and chip, and it went around in a circle. So it was kind of like the energy stamina level thing from Breath of the Wild. And it would chunk that down from full to 0. And once it was 0, the tree would fall over, you would get the wood and all that stuff. The cool thing, and I don't know if you experienced this, Jason, but the cool thing about that was if you got interrupted, so if there was something that was attacking you and you needed to like stop and fight the thing, you could do that. You could go fight the boar or whatever was attacking you. And then when you came back to that tree, it would have the same like hit points. Like the tree would have half of its hit points gone because that was what you had done before. And that was something that I hadn't seen in an MMO in a long time, that it like remembers your progress with mining a resource node so that you're not like losing that time investment. You don't get like interrupted from your gather, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I experienced that once. I actually forced it to happen. I didn't get attacked, but someone had told me that that's how it was. And I was like, oh, that's weirdly cool. Like weird, like it makes perfect sense, but you're just like, that's not something that often happens. I think it's because it took so long to mine certain things. So the first time I ever started whacking at a tree, right, I got my axe out and I started whacking. I go, oh my God, this is going to take forever. Like, it's just going to take a long time. I better get like 30 wood out of this. And then the tree came down and I got 28 wood. And I was like, yes, that's like, yeah, that was satisfying. The other really cool thing that I noticed was like bigger trees or thicker trees or bigger boulders or like, like more populous plants. I don't know what you call that. Thicker plants, took longer to mine, but gave more resources. So it was this really cool, like, oh, do I want to spend more time on one node and just get a bunch of it, or go pick up all these little ones all around? And for like, you can imagine like if it's a dangerous area, you may want to just get stuff quickly and move on. If it's a pretty safe area, you'll just like axe away the biggest tree you can find. Or just get everything. So I found that, and the meter that you kind of described represented that very well. Like how much of a chunk you took out with each swing was kind of directly proportional to how big the tree was to begin with. So that was really cool. Again, like the whole thing was really satisfying. It's weird to rave and compliment so much on just the resource gathering part of the game. But it really was like an actual fun part of the game.
Yeah, and each different kind of resource gathering had its own little XP bar. So you could level up in skinning, you could level up in mining, you could level up in lumbering, you could level up in harvesting for plants. Which it took me a while to even realize that I needed to like craft a sickle so that I could harvest plants. Like I couldn't figure out why I wasn't able to pick up potatoes or something like that. So it was a really cool, all of those systems were kind of keeping you interested and be like, I can just get a little bit more level. And if I can get to level 20, then I can, mine copper instead of just iron or whatever. I forget what the rules were, but it was kind of cool to keep like showing you things. And it told you right there, not like just your level is not high enough to do this. It was, you must be level 30 to do this. It was like, okay, great. So when I am level 30, I will know that I can come back and do this thing. Or next time I see this plant, I'll be able to harvest it. And I thought that was a really nice way to kind of show you what you're working towards and to kind of tie the goals in with the gameplay so that you could see why you would want to do something. It wasn't just to make the number go up. It was like so that you can do this thing.
Yeah, and to add to that, right, they gave you so much customization and freedom, right? Not only could you eventually do that with your level, but you're like, oh man, it's taking forever to chop down this tree. You could decide that you want to use the resources you've gathered so far to craft an iron or a steel axe, right? It was very Minecrafty in that way, where like better tools mined things faster, which would lead to XP getting faster. It all just kind of was this really cool, like very well thought out system that I wouldn't have expected in an MMO, right? I don't expect in an MMO, right? Typically in an MMO, you have a durability based gathering tool of some sort, or not even a tool at all. And you click on it and then you get it. And that's the entire gathering experience. This was different. And I felt like I had control, and I felt like I had to actually think about the experience of gathering rather than just do it. We have not talked yet about fishing, which is an element of gathering. And I would say I've done a lot of fishing in my day and a lot of MMOs and non-MMOs. And this may be the best fishing experience in any of them.
Yes, the fishing in this game was very satisfying. If we're talking about satisfying versus unsatisfying things, this was definitely a satisfying fishing minigame.
Oh, it was very good. You chose your bait. You found like good portions of the water. There was an actual like exploration element of it. There was a resource management element of it with the bait and which bait attracts what kind of fish. So there was like a little bit of strategy to it. But then the mini game itself was like really good. Like you got to choose how far you cast your line. Then you had to essentially hook the fish when it was biting. And then there was a reel it in, but don't break the line mini game as well. And it was just, again, it was fluid. It was fun. It was engaging. It was satisfying when you did it successfully. It was like frustrating, but like not like anger inducing when you failed. It was just good.
Yeah. And let me say the reason I think it was fun, because I don't usually like fishing mini games that much. But the reason I think it was fun, and I said this while we were playing, is because they basically demystified the numbers behind the fishing minigame, right? A lot of fishing minigames, they make you watch and see like, okay, when did the little bubbles happen? Okay, that's when you need to click to, hook the fish, right? And now you got to reel it in, but like you have to like listen to like the audio cues or like look at how bendy your fishing rod is and see if it's going to break the line. And that is a very information hiding interface, right? You have to pay a lot of attention and just kind of know what the cues are. And yes, it's more realistic, but I really appreciated that in this game, they had, when it was time to catch the fish, it would say like, get ready. And then there would be this little meter that would like, do a circle counterclockwise, and it would just, and like when it reached back to the 12 o'clock position, that was when you were supposed to click, or just a little before. And that, it just showed me like, okay, that's exactly when I need to click this button, right? It wasn't like, oh, as fast as you can after this thing happens. Like that's how Hades is. That's kind of how WoW is, although WoW is extremely forgiving. But like it showed me, okay, this is exactly what I need to do, when I need to do it. And then when you get into the reel it in interface, it would show you with this little green, yellow, red thing, like this is how taut your line is. If you just if you're getting close to red, you just let it go a little bit and then it will turn green again. And then you can reel in a little bit more. And so basically I felt like they were showing me all of the numbers, all of the calculations, all of the things that it took in order to win this minigame. And I never felt like it was kind of an unfair or cheap mechanism to catch fish.
Yeah, it turned it into a real skill-based game rather than, almost like a guessing or randomness-based game.
Yeah, and I'm sure that somebody that's very good at fishing in one of these other games would say, oh, well, you're just bad at it, which might be true. But I thought that this one made it complex but accessible. I think that was really the advantage it had.
All right, so now you've got your rocks, your iron ore, your wood, your plants, your fibers, which are hard to find, and your fish. Now you got to craft it all into something. So you truck it all back to town, and you're met with 9 different crafting stations, which seems overwhelming at first, but then very quickly makes sense.
Well, let me take a quick detour on that. I'm going to rant a little bit about the 9 different crafting stations. So there are 9 different ways to craft things. Yes, there's a smelter, there's a blacksmith, there's a workshop, there's a cooking place,
I don't know if there's 9. I use that number randomly.
Whatever the number is, it doesn't really matter. There's a bunch of different places, but in this game there is no mini-map, and in this game also there is no gamey parts of it. There's no floating icons over anybody's head, right? There's no exclamations over quest givers per se. There's no the only thing you get is a little compass that shows icons for things that might be points of interest, but it really doesn't. Maybe there's an icon over somebody's head if they're the quest giver. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's pretty subtle though.
Yeah, but there's nothing that says okay, this is the inn, this is the the workshop, this is the tannery, this is the whatever. There's nothing that's floating in the world. There are signs, right? Fine. There are pictorial signs that are kind of above people's heads, above the heads of the characters, so that you can kind of see them at these stationary places that you go to do these things. But there's no mini map, and there's no good way to see, okay, this is where the workshop is, right? You just have to kind of learn it and know. You have to walk around and look at a thing and say, no. Oh wait, that's the thing for making new clothes. Nope. I want the thing for making new, fishing hooks. Right. And then you go over here and you're oh no, that's the smelter. That's for turning iron into iron bars. No. I want the fishing hook place. And then you finally find the place that's the workbench or whatever that makes fishing hooks. And you're oh my gosh, finally I found it. And then it's okay, well, now you need iron bars. You're ugh, okay, well, I guess I got to go back to the place where the iron goes into iron bars. But let me think, do I remember where that is? It was kind of far away. There's not really anything that's showing me where it is. I'll go wander around a little bit more. So that to me was cool that there were all these different components and pieces and parts. But it was frustrating to me that I had to build a map of this little town in my head and remember where all of the things were, instead of having something that could show me on a mini map or something like that, so that I could do a little bit of wayfinding by map.
Okay, so I have a slightly different gripe, but in the same vein. I would say, so if you zoom in on the big map that is not a mini map, it will show you where all of the stuff is, and you can hover over it again, hover over it to find out what it is. But I agree with you that if you close the big map, it's not immediately obvious where you need to go, right? You can again, you're right. You have to build this kind of mental model in your mind on where everything is and how to get to it. My bigger problem was I didn't know which crafting station to go to. So near the end of my playthrough, I wanted to build a bag. And I was a bag? Is that at the workshop? Is that at the tannery? Is that at the tailor station, whatever it's called? Where do I need to go to build this thing? And I actually had to research it online. I had to go find a guide for it because I could not find which bench I had to go to build this. And I think to add to that, the component materials are not explained very well on how you get them. So like to build this bag, I needed leather, stone, and I don't know, something else, whatever. And like I could see at lower levels, you're like, oh, obviously those come from the stone cutting, the tannery, and the whatever. But I could feel like as the things get more complex, it doesn't do a good job of saying like you get this crafted material from this other station, which comes from this raw material, right? It doesn't show this kind of like prerequisite tree for anything that you're crafting. So I have a feeling that it's going to get a little complicated and not in a good way. So similar gripe, little different. Mine was less about finding the actual station, but more about finding which station I had to go to. That aside, the crafting system was, I'm going to use the word again. You ready? It was satisfyingly complex. It was enough where you're just like, oh, I can see how I can customize what I want here. And I could, I could add in this like charm that I will put on this weapon. It was also useful. Like the weapons I was looting off of enemies were at roughly the same level as the weapons that I could craft. So like if I didn't have a spear that was up to my current level, so I built one. And it was kind of like right in line with where I needed it to be. And because I couldn't find it out in the world, I was able to craft it and have one that was within my level that was reasonable. I really liked that. It made crafting worth it and cool and, something that you don't just overlook or do at the end of the game or, like level from 0 to 100 after you've completed all of the rest of the game. It felt integrated into the rest of the experience. Which was cool. I liked that. And it felt like I had sufficient control over, what I was building and how it was coming out to actually make it useful and fun and interesting and slightly complex.
Yeah, I didn't get too far into the crafting stuff. I crafted a little bit, but only the stuff that I absolutely had to do. Like I mentioned arrows before and that kind of thing. I was much more on the gathering side than the crafting. I did think it was a little bit weird that, and maybe this is just a personal preference thing, but like when you would craft stacks of things, like you could craft, 20 of an item because you had, needed to make a bunch of arrows. It would just like think for a second and then be like, boop, you got 20 arrows. And like, it would be like crafting complete. And I was like, but I kind of like, I don't want the whole World of Warcraft, like you have to wait 2 seconds per item and you just basically go off and get a drink while you wait for your items to craft. But like the Guild Wars thing where they like show you the bar going slowly and then it speeds up slowly, after that and to the point where it's really fast. Yeah. For each repeated item, but it's like showing you the progress. It's like, like I'm happening. This one, because you were also getting like crafting XP as this was happening, it would basically just say, boop, you made 20 arrows. And also you got like 4 levels worth of crafting XP for this. And there was no animation for that. Like it would just be like, yeah, okay, now it's 12. And you're like, well, was it 8 before? Or was it 6 before? Or was it 11 before? Like it was very strange it didn't show a very good like feeling of all the things that this game did a very good job of showing progression for. It did not do a very good job of showing progression of your crafting level.
Yeah, and of all of the other ways that it, I don't want to use the word wastes, but like distracts you or wastes your time. It's just like really like the difference between building 2 arrows and 20 arrows. While I understand you don't want to just sit there and show me a progress bar, show me a progress bar.
I like progress bars.
Just like it doesn't have to go slowly. Just like show me that it's happening over time and it happens a little slower than if I were to craft 2.
Well, it would go to a black screen. That was the thing that was strange to me, was that like the screen would just go to black and then come back up and be like, you crafted stuff. And I was like, okay, but I wanted to see the stuff get crafted. Like there's a reason that people like these little idle games is because they have little progress bars and people like watching progress bars complete.
Yeah, that they do.
One last thing to note about this game is that it is a very pretty game for an MMO. Like this game, it looks very good. Like the engine is solid. I don't know if it's Unreal or if it's something else, but it looks very, very good, especially for an MMO.
I agree. I think the game looks really good. I think that most of the time that doesn't matter too much to me. Like I like things to look good, but that's not going to make or break a game for me. on like how good exactly it looks, as long as it kind of meets kind of some kind of minimum threshold for modern. It's not going to make a huge difference to me. I'm not going to go and oh my God, this looks amazing, I'm going to play it all the time. But I would agree that like it added to the game. Like it certainly was a selling point and definitely was like a plus, not a minus. So I'll agree with you there. But I don't think that it affects me or, moves me one way or another in the same way that it might move someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care that much about the graphics per se. One thing that I did write down, though, about this game was that I think even if it doesn't have a lot of long life as a game that people play, it looks kind of like a very good looking game that you would see on like a TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Like as the generic game that the kid is playing, when the parents come in to yell at him or something like that, it kind of has that look to it. Like it's a good enough game to be like, yeah, this is a modern game. It looks like a video game that's like, modern, but it also has a certain level of generic to it. And I don't know what it is about it, but that was kind of the vibe that I got. And maybe it was the movement of the people because it was all MMO based. So it's all controlled over the network or something. But yeah, I was like, this game has a definite life as, in the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah. The next, Amazon original that comes out on Amazon Prime is going to have this game in the background.
Oh, that's a good cross marketing. Yeah.
Before we get into our kind of like final judgments, I did want to kind of bring up one more point that no one really knows yet, that could become important is that we're not really sure what the monetization methods will be. It's the most I've heard is that a monthly subscription is not required. I would not be surprised to see some kind of monthly premium something or other. I would not be surprised to see a ton of microtransactions for cosmetics. I would not be surprised to see microtransactions for utility items, particularly for fast travel. I wouldn't be surprised to see those things. I don't think it's going to ruin the game. I think the game at its core, if it was just released with what was shown in the open beta, it was a pretty solid game. I think it's worth, a purchase price. I'm hoping that microtransactions don't ruin it. I know that there has been some early criticism of some rumors, but again, they're all rumors. Like no one really knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, if this game turns into like Star Wars: The Old Republic, where there's very clearly a like haves and have-nots caste system almost based on whether or not you pay for it, I will definitely bounce off of it hard. But I would say that given the beta and kind of the way that things seem to be panning out, I am definitely interested in giving it a shot.
With that being said, I think you and I have made our decisions on what's next for us. So if you're listening to this, unfortunately, the open beta is over. But the release of the game is not far off. I mean, it's soon. It's hold on, I'm on the website. On September 28th, the game will launch finally, I think, for real this time. I'm pretty sure. I mean, they could push it, but I don't think so. And I will be buying it. I think no monthly subscription, kind of off the bat initial price of, I think the standard edition is $40. Yep. I think it's worth that. I think it's worth to continue to play. I found myself during this open beta wanting to play more. I wanted to progress. I wanted to play more, but I knew it was all getting wiped. So I didn't. And that was really the only thing holding me back from playing this game, was that I knew my progression wouldn't be saved. So with that in mind, I will be buying it. I will be playing it. I don't know for how long, and I don't know how much I'll get into it. I would expect that I get to max level, at max character level or max player level. But I think it'll be around for a while, and the fact that I don't have to pay $15 a month to pick it up whenever I want that's an easy decision for me.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same camp. will definitely pick it up to play with people. I would not play this game if it was not for Jason and some other friends that were going to pick it up and play, because I don't think it has enough hooks for me personally to play by myself. But I will counter that with saying, we mentioned Minecraft a while ago. This game I expect to be better than Minecraft, because in playing the beta, while we did not group up with our group friends, I still got enough satisfaction out of kind of leveling up my crafting and all of that kind of stuff, with the idea that I can come back to the group and say, hey, does anybody need me to, harvest you some really good high level whatevers, or like to build you something that I've unlocked by investing in this crafting skill level. So I wouldn't play it without people, but I definitely will be playing it with people.
A 10-second aside, you mentioned Minecraft again, and something we have not talked about at all is that there is housing and there is ways to decorate and have your own house. So we didn't experience that, but it just it adds one more kind of like fun element to it that I think we'll get at least one more of our friends involved. So September 28th, we'll report back. We'll probably be playing it for a little bit, and we'll let you know how it goes. If you're interested in playing with us, I would encourage you to reach out. Let us know that you're getting the game. You can always get in contact with us by visiting or joining our Discord, which you can get to at discord.pnapodcast.com.
If you want to find any of our older episodes or read our show notes or get in touch with us via email, you can do that at our website, which is pnapodcast.com. That's P, the letter N, the letter A, podcast.com.
If you're enjoying the show and you would just like to help us out a little bit, we would love if you could tell others about it as well.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Did you see Free Guy?
I did see Free Guy. We saw it like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. I went into it. So I've been waiting for Free Guy since it was like originally, because this was one of those movies that was announced and then pushed and then re-announced and then pushed and then re-announced and then pushed. And then finally it came out, a month or a couple weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, it came out in mid-August. It was supposed to have come out, I think, Christmas 2020.
Man, I think you're right, but I think that was actually the second date.
Yeah, it may have been summer 2019 or 2020, and then it got pushed out to Christmas 2020.
Yeah, I seem to remember like something, 2020, mid 2020. So obviously it got pushed. But it was okay. So I went into it with I would say medium expectations. I like Ryan Reynolds. I like the idea of the world, but I had seen a lot of movies like this that really, really fell flat. So I went into it with very, very medium expectations. Like one that is just awful, that is in a similar vein, is Pixel, the Adam Sandler movie.
Oh my gosh, that movie was so bad.
I just didn't like it at all. So I'm going into this saying okay, fine. I guess maybe Hollywood is going to try this video game thing again. Ready Player One, while not the book, was an okay kind of middle ground sort of reference to video game culture. They're going to try this again. So I went in with straight medium expectations.
I thought Ready Player One was actually pretty good. Not the best movie ever, but for what it was, I thought it was actually pretty good. But Free Guy was a totally different thing because it's an original story. It wasn't a book first, I don't think. And it doesn't tie itself to any particular IP.
Yeah, Ready Player One really doesn't either. But this, Free Guy didn't tie itself to a specific video game either. It kind of created this whole new world, but was just this. I'm just going to cut to the chase. It blew me away. I went in with medium expectations and I walked out of that theater going, that may be on the list of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah, I had expectations that it would be good, but I did not think it was going to be as good as it turned out to be, I guess is maybe a good way to say it. I went and saw it with my wife, who is kind of gamer by osmosis, right? She likes to watch games and she understands a lot of the terminology now. She did not when we met, but she really enjoyed the movie as well because it had a really relatable, gamer and non-gamer kind of angle. And I think that really, it nailed it in terms of being a video game movie that wasn't just trying to be a video game nerd movie.
Yeah, okay. I see that, because the legal battle, love triangle, like all of those like regular movie elements were all in it that were separated from the video game world. Like they were very easily kind of relatable outside of video gaming. The part about video gaming, though, that I really liked, the part about like the virtual reality or whatever, however you want to describe it. I guess it wasn't virtual reality, right? It was just, they did a very good job of like portraying what the players were doing in the world. But I liked the actual MacGuffin. I felt like it wasn't actually a MacGuffin. Like it was like the thing they were going after actually made perfectly reasonable sense on why, and like why it was required, and like why it was so important. And that like kept me in it a lot. I was just like, that makes so much sense on like why they're spending so much time on all of this. And it like actually could be plausible in a very weird yet real world. And I really enjoyed that. Like, I really felt that like they centered on something that didn't seem so unreasonable.
Yeah, I got a little hung up on the actual implementation, I guess. Like, some island that's off past the regular island was like a little bit strange, but it was a reasonable representation for, we want to prove that the original code is in this game. Like, I understand that, I guess. It just seemed like a fairly arbitrary thing. You're saying like it was believable. I'm saying, yeah, it was believable, but the representation took me out of it a little bit. But I was able to say, okay, that's how you have to do it. That's how you show it in a movie. I guess that's fine.
But did it though? Because it happens all the time. Like where like there are levels or rooms or things within the Unity scene, right? that aren't accessible via normal methods by a player.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I mean, there was all that stuff you could do with like the N64 to get to all of these little things that were left over from copy pasted code, basically. So I suppose there's good precedent for that. I was struggling with it because it was like, you're trying to represent that there's AI algorithms in here that are related to this original game. And the way that you're choosing to do it is by showing that there's a tropical island in the middle of the ocean. And that's the best representation artistically that you could do, was like, here's a tangible thing you can look at, because you can't look at AI algorithms.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. The actors were great. Ryan Reynolds was on point, I would say. I don't remember the lead woman's name. Now I'm gonna have to look it up. Jodie Comer. She was excellent. I really liked her. It turned out like I haven't seen her in a whole lot of other stuff, but really, really enjoyed her in this. And just, I mean, the whole cast was fun. It was a great movie. They represented video gaming pretty well. They represented coding pretty well. I mean, as good as you can expect. And then I would say my favorite part of the movie, my favorite like element of it, the thing that really was the cherry on top for me, was the super tasteful, super well-timed, super impactful, but not super in-your-face cameos of everything that was kind of cool. And I don't want to give it away, because there were some that were really, really well-timed and really, really cool. And I like it just was that like super like spark on the top of everything else, that like they would reference things in the video, from the video game world or from the media world, that you were just like, that is so cool. And you experience it and you like a huge smile across your face, and then it's gone. And it wasn't like super in your face, but it added to the story, and it added to the hype, and it added to the excitement.
I think the other thing was they were going back and forth between the real world and the game world very quickly. Like it kept going back and forth, and you had some trouble in some cases determining kind of when they were talking in game versus when they were talking kind of not. And so they would switch from Ryan Reynolds to like computer Ryan Reynolds, like video game Ryan Reynolds, and that was a really cool, like, oh yeah, we're really taking this out, because oftentimes everybody was all live action, but then you'd have to remember that this was a game, and they would like zoom out from a computer screen, and you would have, you know, CG Ryan Reynolds talking on the computer screen. You're like, oh yeah, this is all happening to some of the characters via a computer and to some of the characters via their perceived real life. And so it was a good way to show the differences between those things. And then mixing in real world things from kind of gaming culture was a clever way to do that as well, like to mix it up and go between.
If you are, this is not like, I wish it was sponsored, but if you are a fan of video games and like movies, I do recommend Free Guy. I mean, if you want to go to the movies and go see something, go see Free Guy. I'm not sure it's still in theaters, but when it comes out to whatever streaming platform it comes out to, highly, highly recommend.